Teaching my son about Germany's dark history led to controversy at school. Is it wrong to share our family's truth, or should I keep it private? Should he have to hold back from educating his classmates? The story behind this is somewhat lengthy and intricate. I am German. My husband, who is the father of my children, is American, and we have resided in the United States for the majority of our marriage. We lived in Germany for a few years, during which time my son also attended school in Germany for his second and third years of elementary education. Our younger children are all still in elementary school and have lived here their entire lives. My children grew up bilingual, and we visit my family in Germany every summer. You can probably already guess which historical topic this refers to. I understand that the period from 1933 to 1945 is often inadequately addressed in history classes outside of Germany. At least from a German perspective, much is simply omitted. History was my major at university, and I observed evidence supporting this theory during my semester abroad in the United States, as well as in what my son is currently learning at school. I began these private lessons several years ago. I structure my teaching around the official German curriculum. My son read the same books that his cousins who attend school in Germany read. I watched German war documentaries and films with him, for example, Unser Wetter, Unser Mutter, better known in English as Generation War, Napola, or When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit. I purchased German history textbooks and studied the relevant chapters with him. I ensured that he frequently discussed these topics with his cousins in Germany. Whenever we are in Germany during the summer, we have visited relevant museums and concentration camp memorials annually for many years. Why am I undertaking this? Because it is important to me that he understands these subjects, the unvarnished truth, and the complete reality. It is not about feelings of guilt or shame, but rather about acquiring knowledge. It is about preventing this knowledge from being forgotten. It is essential that he comprehends the background, the causes, the social structures, and the characteristics of totalitarian regimes, internalizes this information, and understands it. This foundation will enable him to make sensible, informed, and thoughtful decisions as an adult. It is about teaching him to take responsibility, both for himself and for society, now and in the future. Learning from past mistakes must be the objective. The overarching lesson I hope he learns is, it is not sufficient to merely point fingers at those who commit inhumane acts. The many who deliberately turned a blind eye and allowed it to happen are equally culpable. Someone once said, Germany from 1933 to 1945 is the narrative of how a normal nation, filled with kind and empathetic individuals, transformed into a nation populated by monsters and followers who allowed the monsters to act as they pleased and, in the end, claimed ignorance of the situation. I do not wish to traumatize him, nor do I want to frighten him. He was never the issue. He has always been very interested in this topic. About 3 years ago, he asked me of his own volition if we could watch certain films. He regularly poses personal, family-related questions. He genuinely enjoys discussing these matters with his cousins and occasionally calls his grandparents. My in-laws were initially somewhat skeptical because, from an American viewpoint, he was still quite young when I started this education. However, from a German perspective, I initiated it at the age when he would have learned this material in a German school. My in-laws now find this approach entirely acceptable. In our situation, it is not purely about the history of my homeland, by the way. My children also have German citizenship. It is also about our very personal family narrative. The truth is straightforward yet gruesome. My grandparents and their siblings were the complete opposite of resistance fighters. Some were, due to their age, simply indoctrinated followers as children, enthusiastic members of the Hitler Youth, while others were highly motivated to go to war at the ages of 14, 15, or 16, with some returning only partially. Some were party members, some were actively involved in the Gestapo, the Schutzstaffel, or the Storm Detachment. One of my grandfathers worked in a concentration camp for a time. My siblings and I read our grandparents' diaries when we were 15 because our grandparents wanted their grandchildren to know the complete, unvarnished truth. Discussing it themselves was something they never managed. My son has read them as well, along with his cousins, all at the age of 15 or 16. What is the current issue? My son's school contacted me to report that he had disrupted class, was disrespectful, and had incited his classmates against the teacher. What he actually did was explain to the teacher that The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is not a historically accurate work, which the teacher claimed was 100 based on real events and the lives of actual individuals. The two children are fictitious. Children who arrived at Auschwitz were generally murdered upon arrival. The fences were extremely secure and charged with high voltage, and my son raised these points in class while instead suggesting other reading material for the class to consider. Following my son's suggestions, his classmates have purchased valuable books, all translated into English, and approach him almost daily with questions. However, history class is essentially being boycotted by the entire class. The principal had already heard my son explain why and how he had acquired such extensive knowledge about this subject. Therefore, my conversation with the principal proceeded, and he stated that my personal concerns were relevant. However, I quote, "Conveying such a war-critical perspective to a half-American at home does not sound particularly patriotic, but you know, that is your family's freedom, and you should have definitely taught your son not to discuss this outside of your family." He then spoke about a lack of understanding for the American people and the upbringing of American children, noting that the unempathetic way Germany addresses this topic simply does not work in the United States, and I should have taken this into account. Parents of my son's classmates also contacted me, voicing that their children are traumatized, but my son contends that they are merely curious and pose questions at home that their parents are unable to answer. The parents accuse me of being a cruel mother, asserting that such deep knowledge would not be beneficial for children and that I have gone too far. I have always known what to monitor regarding this topic, recognized when my son needed an emotional break, and felt confident in my ability to discuss this subject at home. But does this mean my son is fit to share this information with his friends? I assume he spoke about it in a manner similar to how he did with his cousins, who were also prepared for these discussions. The topic is challenging. I do not regret educating my son so thoroughly, and I intend to do the same with my younger children. However, should I ensure that this education remains confined to our family? Should I have made my son aware of how he can and cannot discuss this topic at school? Story 2. After breaking up with Linda, I faced my feelings as I grew closer to Laura. But guilt took over and I ended it with both. Now I enjoy moments with Linda as friends, hoping for more. She sees it as platonic, but can I change her mind? Should I keep hoping? Hello everyone, names, ages, and some details vary since she reads Reddit. My story, M24, begins approximately 2 years ago. I met a woman F30 at a party, let's call her Linda, and we started talking. I was genuinely interested in her, but I soon discovered that she had a boyfriend, so I decided to step back. We continued to communicate, though, as friends. I had other crushes, and she continued to face challenges in her relationship, mainly due to distance. A couple of months later, she ended her relationship, and about 2 months after that, we entered into a situationship. Things progressed when both of us flirted a bit and met at my home to watch series together. So it all began as a casual relationship. We said we hadn't really tried being together seriously, and since she had broken up 2 months prior, I didn't think we would encounter any problems, so we assumed it would work. Of course, the term casual was primarily a sign that things weren't very serious. At times, this setup hurt me because she would say things like, "You know, it's okay to date other people, even if I don't," which saddened me because it implied that our relationship wasn't progressing seriously. However, overall, things were nice. We spent a lot of time together. I was basically living with her. The only issue I faced was that we kept our relationship hidden. There was a 6-year age difference, and she was concerned that her friends might judge her for it. She did not feel ashamed to be with me, but she wanted to avoid gossip about her relationship. During that uncertain phase around the 9th month, I began to have confusing thoughts about where we were headed. We managed to have a conversation about it, which suggested that we were becoming more serious. In the meantime, she started focusing on work-related matters, as she aimed to achieve a specific position, which required her to take some very challenging exams. From that moment forward, our relationship became more challenging because Linda and I were unable to spend quality time together. She was studying every day. Yes, we would meet at night and sleep together, maybe watch an episode or two. But we didn't go on any dates, our intimacy diminished, and in general, it was a difficult period. Some might say that I should have spoken up or taken action, but I am quite certain that it would have hindered her ability to achieve her goals, so I felt I had no choice. I understood how much she needed this, and I would make the same sacrifice again if it meant she would reach her goal. About a year passed in this situation, and the time for her exams arrived. She accomplished her goal and felt a bit more relaxed. However, I struggled to find a moment to speak with her, as she began going out again with friends she hadn't seen in a while and started doing other activities. And soon, the holidays came, during which she went to visit her family. The holidays were a tough time for me because I could not truly enjoy my time in my hometown due to ongoing problems with my parents. At the same time, I had to work overtime because of some complications, making it really hard and lonely. This is where Laura, F20, came into the picture. I met her about a week before returning to my hometown for the holidays. We met at a party and began chatting, of course, as friends. During the difficult time I experienced while at home, Laura kept me company through messages, and she even visited me there. Although I still communicated with Linda, Laura had a more active presence during those days. When I returned to the city, I started contemplating that I might be starting to develop feelings for Laura, and that thought began to frighten me. I met with Laura, and we had some drinks. This is when everything went awry. We had various conversations, and I shared a fair amount about my girlfriend without revealing too much personal information, and after we both got quite intoxicated, we kissed. The next morning, I felt terrible. I went to the bathroom, threw up, and told Linda about what happened. Naturally, she was not pleased. In the days that followed, I attempted to give space to both Linda and Laura. When Linda returned, we met to discuss everything. We talked about our time apart, how we both felt pressured, and the fact that we hadn't told anyone about our relationship, etc. The guilt for what I had done kept swirling in my mind, and ultimately, I felt it was best to end things. However, we decided to remain friends. A few days later, I also spoke with Laura, and we became closer. Initially, it felt strange, but I suppressed that feeling. As time passed, I convinced myself that I genuinely liked her and that it wasn't just a reflection of what I missed about Linda. However, it did not last long, so we ended things approximately 1 month after my breakup with Linda. I realized that I did not truly want to move on from Linda, but I could not continue with the same relationship we had before. I needed more quality time and better communication, mostly from my side. Etc. Unfortunately, Linda was not willing to do that. She stated that she does not take steps backward. If something ends, it is over. It hurt me, but I understood her perspective. We talked a bit more, and I mentioned how much I missed everything we used to do together. I'm not sure if she meant her response or if it was just a reaction, but she replied, "Me too." I clarified that I did not expect anything to happen, of course. If something did arise, I would be thrilled. But I also understood her position, what had hurt her, and her desire to focus on her new work life. We continued to spend time together with our mutual friends and occasionally with each other. I encountered some problems at home, so I asked her if she could accommodate me for a few days, and she agreed. On the first day, we had a conversation. She informed me that she sees our relationship as platonic. I replied that I understood that. While I do not view her in a platonic manner, I could accept her perspective. I told her that I did not wish to change my feelings. If she was uncomfortable with that, I would understand and would gently distance myself until I was ready. She did not seem bothered by this. I simply want to be in her life and spend time with her. I want to give her gifts and cook for her. In the days that followed, we talked, watched series, and while doing so, I massaged her feet. She rested her feet on my thighs. We were sitting on the couch, and I would massage them. The next day, the same situation occurred. However, in the afternoon, she fell asleep, and I did too beside her. I hugged her around the waist, and she did not seem to mind. She woke up afterward and did not say anything. She also allowed me to caress her back and her head when I attempted to do so, of course. I tried to avoid being creepy. Every night, she goes to sleep in her bed, and naturally, whenever she changes clothes, she closes the door. At times, I feel that I should hold on to some hope. At other times, I feel I should simply move on. The truth is, I do not want to move on. I want to hug her, talk to her, and see her smile. But I am uncertain if that is acceptable. What do you think? Is there any way I can lead her to reconsider? Story 3. Family is supposed to support you, but when my cousin, once my best friend, turned on me and my aunt followed suit, I felt utterly betrayed. Despite my growth and efforts to prove myself, all they see are my past mistakes. Is acceptance by my own blood too much to ask? People can be truly challenging individuals. Honestly, I have never had much faith in the world, but I always believed that at least those closest to me would support me. I thought that, perhaps it is naive of me, but it still stings just the same. I never anticipated this from my own family. I went away for a while, thinking I would take a break and clear my mind. I aimed to spend some time with relatives who were supposed to make me feel at home again, some family members I had not seen in a long time. But I was unprepared for what awaited me. I did not realize how everything would spiral out of control. And I certainly did not anticipate how much it would hurt. I missed my father while I was gone as well. I missed him more than I can express. He is like my best friend to me. He listens to me, understands me, loves me, and has taught me how to become the best version of myself. It has always just been my father and me since I was young. It was just him and me against the world. However, I never recognized how much I needed him until I found myself so far away. But he did not know. He thought I would be fine spending time with family. Honestly, I believed I would be fine too. I hoped that maybe this time would be different. Unfortunately, nothing ever remains the same, and we do not always get what we desire. Life taught me that a long time ago. I was merely expecting something different, And let me tell you, when the people you trust betray you, it feels as though the world is closing in on you. Like my cousin. She is the one who instigated everything. She was always like a little sister to me, my best friend. I stood by her through everything, and we would talk for hours about anything and nothing. We were there for one another constantly. I felt the need to protect her, and I did when necessary. We always had each other's backs. We grew up together. She was the person I confided in, trusting her with my deepest, darkest, and most sensitive feelings. I revealed my vulnerability to her, which is not something I often do, but she transformed into someone else. Someone who would criticize me at every opportunity just to get her digs in. She acted as if it were a joke, but it was not. It was always directed at me, and she was aware of it, always targeting what would hurt the most. She knew what she was doing. Yet the problem was that no one else recognized it. They believed I was merely being overly sensitive and needed to toughen up. She used the things I confided in her, things I had barely shared with anyone, just to belittle me and make me feel insignificant. However, I remained silent. Not because I did not want to retaliate, but because I did not want to create further issues. I did not want to exacerbate an already tense situation. I did not want to hurt her feelings, but she did not care. She betrayed me and threw me under the bus. She went behind my back, told my aunt everything, and made it seem like I was the one at fault. Like I was the instigator. I tried to confront her, attempted to mend things, but she would not even acknowledge me. Silence. And that silence hurt far worse than any words ever could. Then it intensified. My aunt, the woman who raised me, the one who loved me as if I were her own child, turned against me too. She began to compare me to my cousin, offering excuses for her behavior, even when she knew my cousin was in the wrong, even after hearing my cousin belittle me and express how much she loathed me. My cousin never encountered trouble. She never had to endure the hateful words, the constant scrutiny, nor experience the hopelessness and worthlessness they instilled in me. She never needed to claw her way out of the hell I faced. But my aunt, she does not recognize that. She is too occupied comparing me to an idealized version and portraying me as the failure. I carry scars from the past, from mistakes I made, and things for which I am not proud, but I have worked diligently to leave them behind. I have fought to become a better person, someone stronger, and they fail to see it. All they perceive is the girl who faltered, who made mistakes, and they use that to depict me as inferior. They always compare me to my cousin because she has not made the same choices I have. She is involved in the positive aspects of life. Meanwhile, they continue to insist that I am still a failure. It infuriates me to no end. They clearly do not experience anger like this, not the kind that twists your stomach and crushes your chest under 1,000 pounds. I feel everything, every single emotion. I feel the rage, the pain, the betrayal and disappointment, and it all crashes over me like a powerful wave. They do not understand. They do not see the girl who stands before them now, the one who fought to get to this point, the one who clawed her way back from the brink. They do not recognize the strength it took to lift myself up from where I was. All they perceive is the mess I used to be. I wish I could make them see it. I wish I could show them how hard I have worked, how much I have transformed. But I do not believe they will ever understand. They will never look beyond my past mistakes. They will never recognize the woman I have become. I will always be the disappointment in their eyes. I will always be the girl who drank to escape, who clashed with the law, who harmed herself when the pain became unbearable, who was expelled from school. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, it is never sufficient. And that cuts deeper than anything they have ever said. I have spent so much time trying to prove to them that I am no longer that person. But nothing I do will ever change their perception. They will always wish I were someone else, someone they could be proud of. They will always hope I would be more like my cousin, the perfect little angel who never stepped out of line, engaged in the church, the community, and never sneaked around to experience something. Each time they say it, each time they tell me I am not enough, it is as if they are carving into me with a dull knife, slowly and painfully, until there is nothing left but this hollow feeling inside. Yet what pains me the most is the realization that they no longer see me as family. Family is supposed to stick together, right? We are supposed to be bonded by blood. I have always believed that and remain steadfast in that conviction. We should never abandon family, as that is family. But the reality is that some of my own blood do not see me that way. They fail to recognize the woman who has fought, who has struggled, who has bled to reach this point. All they perceive is the wreckage I left behind, and that hurts more than I can express. I experience emotions profoundly, everything, every glance, every word, every silence. It all hits me like a freight train, and I cannot escape it. I cannot evade the weight of their disappointment, their judgment. I know who I am now, but I certainly do not know where I am headed. I can never measure up to what they want me to be. I simply desire to be loved and accepted as they do with others. Is that truly such a significant request? Story 4. Dumped and lost in a spiral. After my ex left me, I struggled with suicide and reached out to her new partner. Was I manipulative for trying to communicate my pain in a voice memo? Now we're both silent. Did I go too far? This is a throwaway account. I'm only posting this because I could use some insight from strangers. I am 25 non-binary and I crashed out after being dumped by my ex, who is 34 transgender woman, and now she believes I am controlling and manipulative. For context, we are non-monogamous. My ex, whom I will refer to as K, and I met at a fetish club and immediately connected. Our relationship was incredibly rewarding and healing for me. She truly helped me open up emotionally and work through some trauma I had been repressing. We had a lot of fun together, and I have many wonderful memories with her. Despite how terribly things ended, I am still grateful for the relationship we had as it initiated my healing journey. I wish her the absolute best, but from as far away from me as possible. Now, onto the breakup. Unfortunately, due to some life circumstances, I was forced to move back in with my parents 2 hours away from her, which caused me to fall into a deep depression. I slept all day and was awake all night, began binge eating, and cried frequently. My self-esteem was at an all-time low. During this time, she was very busy and stressed due to significant personal issues, particularly a major career change and helping her friends and loved ones cope with the Los Angeles fires at the beginning of this year, so we were not in frequent communication. One of the few things that kept me going through my depression was the thought of seeing her once a month to attend my favorite party at the club where we met, engaging in some kink activities, and having what I called my big sexy weekend. The Thursday before the party, I drove down to visit her for a craft night she hosted at her place. I had a wonderful time with her and our friends. After everyone left, and it was just the two of us, she informed me that she was not feeling well and did not want to have sex, which I completely understood, and I assured her that she never needs an excuse to say no, and that I never expect that from her. We cuddled, kissed, and discussed our feelings until around 2 in the morning, during which I shared with her how horrifically depressed I had been, but that I was trying to push through it as best as I could. We eventually fell asleep. On Friday morning, as we were eating breakfast and talking, She received a FaceTime request from someone with whom she had been having a rocky relationship. I will call her M, a 26-year-old female. Kay asked me if she could answer it, and I said yes, so the two of them FaceTimed with me somewhat off to the side. M was out of town and was asking Kay to take care of her cat that she left behind. Kay informed me that, in addition to taking care of Mtik's cat, she had other errands to run and would be gone all day. Naturally, I was extremely saddened by this because I thought we would spend more time together, but I understood she was very busy and ended up hanging out with one of her roommates and his friend while she was gone. When she returned, I tried to be optimistic and talked about the party that night. However, she sat down to tell me that she did not want to go and that she planned to spend the night with P, another person she was dating, who I believe is genuinely good for Kay. I continued trying to maintain a positive outlook about my relationship with Kay and said something like, "Well, there is always next month," even though my feelings were hurt, at which point Kay informed me that there actually would not be a next month because our relationship was over. I was completely blindsided by this and responded by asking the embarrassing, demeaning questions that people often pose when confronted with rejection. Am I not good enough? Did I do something wrong? And so on. This clearly annoyed her, so I decided to finish getting ready at my friend Wtk's house instead. I still intended to go to the party in hopes of salvaging my weekend, and as I was leaving, she mentioned she would probably also be attending. I asked, "And you're not going to do anything with me, are you?" Which I do regret, and she said no, adding that I needed to stop pushing her boundaries. I agreed and left as quickly as possible. While walking to my car, I stated, "I did not mean to push your boundaries earlier, I am just feeling insecure right now." She appeared understanding, then I scoffed and said, "Have fun with P," and drove away. That night at the party, Kay arrived with P, and I did my best to have fun with my other friends. I caught glimpses of them making out and engaging in their BDSM scenes, which I tried very hard to ignore. Eventually, I left early to go to my friend Wtk's place. I did not sleep at all that night. I was extremely restless and emotional and entered what I realized was a manic-depressive suicidal episode. This is where I might be the one at fault. I reached out to P to express how Kay had treated me, and I conveyed that I thought Kay was experiencing a manic episode. Kay has bipolar disorder, and I met her when she was manic, observed her stabilize, and then noticed her enter another manic episode while under the stress of her career change and the Los Angeles fires. I did not judge or blame her for entering this episode, and my intention in reaching out to P was to inform her of K's condition so that P could assist her and herself, since Kay had decided that I was no longer a person she wanted in her life. P is autistic and struggles with interpreting facial expressions, so I advised her that if she cared about Kay, she should study bipolar disorder and learn the signs of K's episodes. This conversation did not go well, and I regretted reaching out to her as soon as it concluded. I had another sleepless night, this time with W in bed to prevent me from harming myself as I had done the previous night. The following morning, I was so exhausted and distressed that I thought it would be appropriate to leave Kay a voice memo expressing how her actions made me feel. This is another moment when I might be at fault. I told her that the way she treated me sent me into a manic-depressive suicidal spiral, and that I needed space and time to heal from the pain she caused me. I mentioned that if she cared about me and wanted me to recover, she should not attend the one kink party I go to every month, as it is the only place we might encounter each other, and if I saw her there, I would likely become upset again. I stated that I did not wish to hear from her until I was no longer suicidal, and that I would send her a thumbs-up emoji when that happened. Eventually, I sent the emoji, and she responded with a lengthy message explaining how my request for her not to attend my favorite party was controlling, restrictive of her sexual autonomy, and that I was manipulative in weaponizing my tears to try to get what I wanted from people. We are now in mutual no-contact status, and I have been working on moving on, but occasionally, I worry that there may be some truth to what she said about me. So Reddit, am I the asshole? I will respond to questions in the comment section. Story 5. I was stuck with an arrogant classmate for a crucial group project, but he never showed up. I decided to let him believe everything was on track while I planned my revenge. When presentation day came, I revealed my secret. I wasn't presenting anything. How did the teacher respond? During the final trimester of my last year in high school, we were required to complete a group project that needed to be finished by the end of the trimester and was evaluated and graded in front of a panel of teachers instead of through an examination. I was paired with the most unpleasant person in the class. Imagine someone who is extremely entitled and arrogant. Every time we were supposed to work on the project, he would have some excuse for not showing up and insisted that I work on it alone to ensure the project remained on schedule. Initially, I tried to voice my concerns to the teacher, but she simply responded, "Make it work. It is your project." Eventually, I stopped scheduling work meetings altogether. He would call me to inquire about the project's progress, and I would respond with phrases like, "Yes, it is going well. I believe it is almost finished," or "I will send you the presentation to prepare for the panel." Little did he realize that I had a secret plan in mind. The project accounted for 40 of the final grade. I, having performed well in the class, already had approximately 55 out of the other 60 points, so even if I received a 0 on the project, I would still pass the course. The unpleasant individual had significantly less. After it became evident that he intended to use my work to pass the course and the teacher was indifferent, I decided to discard all work related to the project and keep him uninformed. That last part was much easier than I anticipated, as he was content with me telling him that everything was proceeding as planned. In the final week before the panel presentation, things became more challenging. He wanted me to send the presentation so he would know which portion he needed to present. I managed to delay him for a few days with excuses, but 2 days before the panel presentation, I finally sent him an email with the PowerPoint, which was actually an MP3 file with a changed file extension. The following day, I turned off my phone. In the evening, I called him back with the excuse that my phone had issues, and he was in a panic that something was wrong with the PowerPoint. I reassured him not to worry, and that I would check it out that night and have a functional PowerPoint ready for him the next day. I would arrive at the school at 8 a.m., allowing him to practice his part of the presentation before the panel meeting at 9 a.m. the next morning. I arrived at school just before 9 a.m., having turned off my phone again. When he saw me, he approached with a mix of panic and anger, but before I could explain, we were called into the room with the panel for our presentation. I simply told him not to worry and to let me handle the talking. We greeted the panel, and I began the introduction. The original intention today was for us to present our project, Zeiss. However, since I already have enough points to pass the course and Mr. Unpleasant here could not be bothered to contribute any effort, I decided to forgo the presentation and instead enjoy a nice day off. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your attention. I then walked out, leaving 4 bewildered teachers and 1 individual with his mouth agape, as though he were attempting to eat a club sandwich vertically. Naturally, there was some backlash in the days that followed. The teacher called for an explanation, but ultimately acknowledged that I was a good student and that I indeed had already passed the course without the project. He was upset that he had to study over the summer for a retake exam. All in all, I was pleased to have graduated and looked forward to attending college the following year. After the summer, I learned from friends that he failed his retake exam and that this, combined with other poor grades, resulted in him having to repeat his final year. Karma can be quite harsh. Edit, I see some comments regarding the teacher, so I think I am misrepresenting her here. I did not feel she was a bad teacher. I believe she simply wanted to provide us with the opportunity to resolve this issue independently. After all, experience is the best teacher. I also assume she thought we had worked something out after I stopped voicing complaints when I had my plan. Edit 2. To clarify any confusion regarding the grading system, this took place in Belgium during my 6th and final year of middle bar, when students are typically 17 to 18 years old. The school operates with subjects. I misused the term class for subject, such as mathematics, economics, English, etc. In this case, the subject was mechanics. Each subject must be passed with a score of 50 or higher for a student to pass the year. If a student receives a score between 45 and 50 in a lesser subject, but passes all other subjects with good grades, the teacher could allow them to advance to the next year regardless. The weightings of grades were distributed differently among subjects. Mechanics allocated 60 on tests throughout the year and 40 on the project. Mathematics likely divided the weight by allocating 50 to tests during the year and 50 to examinations.